Hello. So today I thought I will begin a little bit on the topic of uncrusting. Now, what I mean by that is, as we go about our daily lives, I've noticed that a lot of times happening with mothers, caretakers, teachers, maybe to some extent healthcare professionals. Basically, people who are in one way or the other always in the form of taking care of others, or always in the public eye, or people who are more often than not interacting with people than doing their own work. Like say for example, artists. Artists also interact with people a lot. Maybe say writers, they spend more time inside the room doing their work, and maybe interacting with people only depending on the degree of famousness they are. So I'm talking about people who largely interact with other people, or people who are living in joint families. They're always in with other people. So what I'm talking about here is what I call as a certain thickness of skin, or thickness of a certain insensitivity that comes about. What I mean by that is, when you're interacting a lot with people, and there tends to be several layers of interaction. There could be intellectual bombardment, there could be emotional bombardment, there could be energetic bombardment. So when you're constantly in the presence of others, or say in a very say you're in the traffic, you're interacting with different kinds of movements that's happening, and at some point you kind of get calloused. What I mean by that is, if you've noticed any person who's been doing manual work, if you notice their hands, you will see that it's kind of hard skinned. Some thick skin is formed here and there, and that's because the skin has been rubbing against something much more harder than the hand is, and hence develops a certain, the skin becomes thicker to be able to deal with the onslaught of it, with the onslaught of material that's harder than the material that the skin is made of. So what I mean by callousness is a certain insensitivity to what is constantly being subjected to what a person is constantly being subjected to the point that they can't feel it anymore. It's a kind of numbness, but the numbness is coming from something so constantly hit that you can no longer feel it, or you can no longer sense it. It's like, when it's like, have you seen this movie Pushpaka Vimanam, in which the actor Kamal Hassan, he lives by a theater, okay, and day in day out he keeps listening to the sound of the dialogues and the music that goes on in the theater, and to the point that he cannot sleep without hearing that sound. Conversely, if you so that's a certain kind of dependence on it, so much that you cannot function without it. It's like, it could also be like in certain discomfort, in a certain, I wouldn't want to use the word abusive relationship sometimes, but sometimes you get so accustomed to something that when something other than that comes about, you don't know how to deal with it. So I'll just leave that there, because it could be more complex. This is another part of what happens when you are accustomed to something, that you're numb to it, but you also are too familiar with it that you don't really know how to be other than that. So I'll just stay with the callousness that develops, the insensitivity that develops. And so what I'm saying is, okay, like say somebody is living by the side of the road, and the road constantly has traffic. So after a certain point, you stop hearing the sound of the traffic, because that normalizes for you. you're normalized to something being constantly there, so much so that you can no longer hear it. It's like the wallpaper. Okay, when you buy the wallpaper, you're all inspired about how it looks and how it's going to make the house or the walls look like. But after some time, you stop seeing it because it's part of the scenery. It's like furniture. You have the furniture. If you haven't rearranged it for a long time, you get used to it. You stop seeing it as something that you placed, but something as though it is part of the scenery. Yeah, you stop seeing it being there. You kind of it's not a selective blindness, but it's a developed normalization, like as though this is how it is. For some people, if you notice, they have several disease conditions, like say they have arthritis and they may have back pains. And after some time, that stops being a problem. It becomes like this is how life is. Yeah, other people are having different experiences, but this is how my life is. Okay, I have these pains, I have these discomfort, I have these people in my life, I have these kind of behaviors, and this is how life is. And they say, okay, what to do, but this is how life is. So I'm referring to something called as normalization, where you're normalizing as to be able to deal with something because it's ongoingly happening. You kind of get desensitized to what it's actually doing to you. And hence now the effect of this is sometimes you're not able to feel other things. You're not able to appreciate things other than what has been constantly subjected. For example, if you've always been in the city and traffic and the kind of air, the pollution levels, dust, this is what is normal for you. So sometimes going on a vacation, maybe to some other place, have you feel kind of different. You may even have you feel refreshed, and then when you come back to the city, then you initially when you say it's going to be like, that was better, that place was nice, and then you come back, and after some times, yes, you're back in the city, and this is again normal again. Yeah, you get accustomed to it. So what I'm calling is a certain accustomization. Now, what do we do to bring back this our sensitivities, our sensibilities? Is from now, while accustomization, normalization may cause a certain callousness to what is there, how do you bring back freshness? How do you bring back more variety, more ability to continue to feel different things other than just what is there? To appreciate what may be other than what is normal is, well, we have our five senses. Yeah, we have seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and feeling. Yeah. So let's just say the sense of sound. So when you're listening to sound, just notice what are all the sounds that you can hear. Yeah. So when you listen to sounds, yeah, try and listen to what are all the different sounds, different intensities of sounds that you can hear inside the room and outside the room. Okay, let me give you something much more. All right, let's just, okay. I was thinking I will just speak about what you can feel, because that is usually what is not felt. I will do about sound another day, but you have a little intro to that. Let's say in terms of feeling, yeah, you have your hands. Now when you touch many things, you may be washing vessels, you may be washing clothes, or always working on the computer, or your or the clothes you wear, the different textures you feel. Now there will be certain things that you're always doing, so you're accustomed to only touching those things more regularly, and hence you may not be able to really appreciate what a touch entails. So and hence you may be kind of limited to certain range of temperatures or certain kind of textures, certain kinds of sensations in your hand, and hence a certain acclimatization comes about, so that your sensory abilities are limited to only a few things. So though there may be other things, because you most often do these things, hence your range becomes narrowed. So how do you bring back your sensitivity by which you can appreciate life better? Is, as you're going about your daily activities, whatever objects you touch, try and feel it like you're touching, like it's a person. If you like, you're likely to be a little more mindful of what that object feels like. Say if it's a chair, instead of just looking at it as a hard, non-living thing, try and when you touch it as though it's got life of its own. And when you do that, you might notice a certain softness about your hands. You might notice a certain difference in your relationship with the object that you're touching, and a certain difference in how you perceive your immediate environment, in how you relate to what is in your immediate environment. And you may discover something unique about relationship itself. And relationship, we do have relationship with people, but here we are bringing it, we're granulating it further. We are bringing it down to our everyday interaction with our everyday things. And by the faculty of touch, which is more palpable, you're more likely to come a little more in touch with having a better handle on life. Because when you can touch something, when you can feel something, when there is more palpability to it, you're not dealing with something imaginary, but this is something that you need to hold to. You need to feel the texture of. You need to experience the temperature of it. You're more likely to get a little more handle on the vehicle of life. I invite you to just try this out and notice if there's a difference in how you interact with your everyday things, with your everyday people, with your everyday environment. If there may be a certain change, a certain shift in how you perceive life, in how you perceive yourself, and how you perceive what you have in life. Happy discoveries.